Let me see. I'm gonna hit this.
Hang on, let me get that video up. There it is.
Okay. I know TikTok's a little
Does it work? Did it work?
not yet. You got to hit it, and then you got to hit done at the top. There you are.
Yay.
Hey, well, thank you so much for doing this. I'm very excited.
Me too. Huge fan. You know that. That's why I
Well,
was
well,
asking.
likewise.
Oh,
Well, likewise. So I'll tell you what. Obviously, this is casual. Anybody, this is Ashleigh Banfield. If you don't know who she is, then that's on you. But hit the follow button. This is your personal account, not the Banfield News Nation account.
I think so. It should be. Yeah.
Yeah, it's yours.
I'm super
So
bad at all social media except for Instagram. I do a lot of Instagram, but my TikTok is kind of. I've done a few, but I'm just like a space cadet because I'm always working on the show.
yeah, I mean that makes sense, and you're probably limited on what you can post on TikTok.
Oh,
Although one thing that I'm sure you know JB Buno, I think you do from WFLA. So,
say it again.
WFLA, JB Buno, JB, hey JB.
Not
He was
anymore.
during the Petito case. He was one of the ones covering it real big down, physically in Florida.
It's
Well,
right next to me.
he does digital journalism, and he will stream oftentimes WFLA stuff from his account. So I mean, I don't know if that's something that News Nation ever wants to do, but
Um,
that's
yeah. Listen, it's funny.
it's a thing.
When social media started, this is how old I am. When social media started, I remember rules saying you absolutely cannot post anything because the news networks were all so worried that we were going to. A second, that we were going to scoop them, scoop the actual news networks. And over the years, they've obviously realized the value, and it was just fool's errand to suggest that all these reporters shouldn't be getting out there. So that's all changed. So it's really interesting how much I can actually post. The rules of TikTok don't allow me to say certain words,
Yeah,
but the
you have
rest
to
of it,
make up stupid words like unalive.
I know, it's weird. Even in the videos, do you have to say videos are safe, aren't they?
To a degree. I mean, you can't. People will start saying things like for the assassin. Like I'll say it here and whatever, but like for assassin, they'll be like smashing, or so they'll kind of like change the word so like it fools
Even the
the
word assassin, like that's it. That's
yeah.
my novels, and
There's a
yeah.
lot of rule. And by the way, some of our favorite people are in here, our mutual friends. I think Nikki Schmidt is in here. Jim is as well.
Hi, Nikki. Hi, Jim.
So that means Joe will probably show up at some point. So. Well, anyway, so I didn't really know what to talk about when we first did this. And the way I looked at it was like, well, let's do where we ask you questions because you're always the one asking questions. And so I had followers say, hey, drop in the comments of these videos, things that you might want to know about Ashleigh. But then when I spoke to Anna, she was like, and I haven't had a chance. I've been running like a chicken with my head cut off the last several days. I was actually just in New York also. Right before all this happened, I was staying, because I think you live in New York, right? Or
So I live just outside of New York, but my office is on 42nd Street.
okay, so I was staying right in Times Square. I think it was on 47th at the Tempo by
Okay.
Hilton. We were there for like Thanksgiving, walked out and did the parade. So so we were just there. But I know you've been covering this UHC thing quite a bit. So she was like, well, she's open to talk about it. So I've been covering that obviously as well
I
as
have
all
a huge question for you.
the Diddy stuff too. But yeah, go ahead.
This is weird. I know I shouldn't be asking
No,
questions.
go for it.
It's an important question for you specifically.
Oh,
There's a big headline that internet sleuths are refusing to help the police in this investigation. And at first I thought, that's odd. What would be the reason for that? Is it because they don't want to give away their goods before they get it on their accounts? Or no, it's because of who the victim is. It's
yeah.
because it's healthcare. And I thought, wow, we've really changed, haven't we, as a nation?
It's very interesting. So I will go at first and say I don't define myself as an internet sleuth because I'm not trying to solve anything. I'm just trying to inform, right? However, the sentiment has been very interesting. In fact, I actually have a news article pulled up here, and I reached out to the guy who created this, where basically, let me read the headline to you real quick. It's Justice for Suspect in the Brian Thompson (parentheses CEO United Healthcare case) fundraiser formed. And basically, what this is it's GoFundMe took it down, so he put it on somewhere else. But basically, he started a fundraiser, and here's what he says: everyone deserves the presumption of innocence and a proper legal defense. And you can be assured the wealthy are going to destroy the suspect, whoever they think it is, once he's in custody. What is needed is for a fund to be ready so that when he or they are apprehended, when the big name lawyers start volunteering to offer defense, there will be money there to at least try to cover their costs. Basically, what this is it is a GoFundMe. It's not on GoFundMe, but it's a fundraising event for money for the suspect, the assailant, should if and when he should get caught. What I think that there is, though, and I'm gonna do this as neutrally as I possibly can. There is a big shift where you're talking about $1 billion companies. Healthcare is a challenging concern because we've known people where most of us are one major healthcare event away from bankruptcy, right? That's unfortunately kind of the thing is, and I think that a lot of people are kind of like, well, oh well, how many people have died under? I mean, and again, this is not my sentiments. This is just what I've read in the comments.
Listen, I'm hearing a lot of comments like,
Yeah.
Unfortunately, my condolences are out of network, or there are a lot.
Yeah.
I get it. Just this week, Justin, I had a $4,200 bill denied from United Healthcare. Just this week.
Well, they have a very high denial rate, apparently, as we've learned.
And okay, here's the other crazy crisscrosses. You ready? Just this week, I had a $4,200 bill denied, 100% denied. I owe the whole thing. And
you're gonna appeal that, right?
Apparently I have reached a cap with one of my children's dental care, and it's like, no, that's just what it is. And I'm like, really? You're effing kidding me.
You reached a maximum.
I reached the maximum, but it wasn't even a big maximum. I think it was only like 3,000 or something that we reached with another. I've got four people in my family. So then, ready for this? That's one crisscross with the story. The next crisscross is that he exited and rode down my street where I used to live in New York, 86th Street and Central Park West. Like I used to live right at Columbus and Central Park West, between Columbus and Central Park West on 86, and he went right past and got his cab. And not only that, where he entered the park down on 59th, right at 6th, my first apartment was right around the corner from that as well, like right within spitting distance. I would walk my dogs there all the time. So I had 3 intersections with this story, apart from it being New York, which is where, I am.
The only one that I have that was an intersection is so right where he was killed. I was there on Sunday, and that literally the exact spot. So one thing about me, and there's no shame for me to admit what I'm about to admit here. One of my absolute favorite parts about New York that I'm obsessed with, and I think it's just the negotiation aspect of it, is I love the fake designer stuff. I love it.
I do too.
I love it. And so like there was like we were walking to Bryant Park. And this guy had like one of the big like Louis Vuitton like overnight bags. I'm like, oh, I really like that. And she's like, my wife's like, go ask. So I was like, okay. And the guy was like $250. I'm like 100. And so long and short of the story with this, the cops ended up coming by. So they're like trying to hide everything. And they're like, no, keep it here. So because it was so big and bulky, he ended up giving it to me for $100. And it's like the big like overnighter, and it seems like a pretty good quality fake. But like that was in the exact spot. Like we were there hanging out doing that transaction.
Unreal. By the way, as you were talking about it, I'm like, oh my God, is Justin like implicating himself in a crime right now?
Yes.
Because I'm not sure if you as the purchaser or the
It's not stolen.
What's that?
It's not stolen, so.
It's not stolen. Now, the vendor for sure committed a crime by fencing fake goods, but I'm not sure about possessing a counterfeit product. I'm not sure of the law in possessing. I can tell you one thing: they would not prosecute. But
no, it would be worth it.
Yeah.
Everybody would be on my side too. I get the GoFundMe. But
so let's talk more about that whole issue about and not so much about Brian Thompson. And look, yes, he was worth tens of millions. His compensation package was somewhere around 10 million a year. He's an executive. Let's not just hate executives in America, because it's really what makes America great is that you can reach that status if you work your buns off. What I'm frustrated by is not that people are angry at him. I mean, lots of people are angry at the system because it's a terrible system, right?
It's a terrible system.
Yeah, and terrible policies. And United Healthcare ranks worst among about 10 different insurers with, I think, about 60% denial rate. Like, holy cow. What I'm frustrated about is that we've reached a point right now in America, and P.S., new American for almost 30 years, and it was never like this, that this is celebrated to kill for it. Like to assassinate with a giant weapon, like, and a silencer on a sidewalk with other people. That's where I'm upset. I'm not upset that people are upset. They should be. They should want change. But But the way we've always changed in this country, which makes us superior, right? It makes Americans superior. I'm just going to say it, is that we organize. We organize and we do things with boycotts, or we do political things, but we do things the right way, as a higher order society does. I have been to all the countries where this kind of shit happens, right? I have been where this is acceptable, where justice is a hood over your, and then you get the gulag yank. I have been there. I don't want to live that way. I don't like those countries for that reason. I like experiencing them and seeing them and being bewildered by them, but I don't want to live in that kind of a potholed country.
Well, I think that what's interesting about this, and what I've noticed a lot of similarities in this, is really kind of not the event itself, but just the aftermath of the event and the reaction of the event, is the Titan sub.
Yes, absolutely.
The people were curious and interested in what happened, but they weren't concerned with the people who perished in the Titan sub. And it was hard for people to get behind. You guys spent $250,000 for a ticket to go see the Titanic. That's like out of so many people's realms of even being able to think about it. And I think that that's part of the issue, because I feel like you're at a point in America, and for people who don't know, Ashleigh's Canadian, by birth, and been here for a while. But
now I'm a citizen here too.
yeah, you're a citizen, but she was born in Canada, so that, just so you know, she's been all over the world, and we can talk about that in a little bit. But I think that what it's at is, I think that for the last several years, people have been really being squeezed so tightly to the point of no return. Not that this is related, but it is related. There's an article sitting in my drafts for me to do later, where the baby boomer generation is going homeless at a rate that hasn't been seen since the Great Depression.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's just so much going on. And when you look at, and I think when people see this and they look at the record profits that these companies are making, and then you look at, now that all this stuff is coming out about Brian Thompson, he was, there was an investigation with the DOJ and, inflating the stock to offload it, insider trading kind of stuff. But other than that, I haven't really been able to find anything out about him that was it's not like he was I've been able to see that he was like a serial, not that it would merit murder, like a serial cheater or anything like that.
I found something that I wasn't expecting to find. And by the way, there was a comment that went by quickly. I don't know who said it, who said Ashleigh's missing the point. I'm not sure what it is, and I would like to know which point I'm missing, because I'd like to discuss it. So watch for that person if they're able to repost which point.
Did you see what their name was? My mods can watch and send it to me.
I missed the name. It went by so quickly. I'm trying to read all the comments as they go by, but it said, Ashleigh, you're missing the point. And you spelled my name wrong. They spelled it L-E-Y. It's L-E-I-G-H. But there was something that I thought was fascinating, and it actually, to me, maybe spoke to motive. And that was that Brian Thompson apparently was one of the executives who was trying to effectuate some change over the customer experience, meaning the shit that I went through this week with a $4,200 FU, he was trying to change that. And so all of a sudden, my, true crime mind went to who exists within that mega corporate environment, right? Like United Healthcare, he's the CEO. United Health Group is the group that's above him. Were there people within that group who said, this is bad? This is going to cost millions. This is going to send our stock plummeting. Whatever it is, I just thought, could this be another motive for an executive who pulled out a hit saying,
so like an inside job kind of thing?
An inside job, basically, with somebody, or was it someone vying for that position? I just don't know. It's just there are a lot of different avenues of motive, which make this such a tough crime to solve, right? Yeah. But I was interested to see that there was that coverage, that he was actually trying to do something better.
What keeps pulling me away from it being a higher job or anything other than being personal, this is my opinion, obviously. And for everybody who's listening, neither one of us are stats. We don't know the facts of this yet because the guy's still on the run. We don't know motive. We don't know anything. Everything is just, you have to tell them as they come in, because they're like, we heard them say that, and they're going to run with it. But that's not what's going on here. But for me, for him to write on the ammunition, like the words that were written on the ammunition, to me, that makes it personal, because when you're talking about a professional gun for hire or a hitman, right, they're going to do as little as they can to get caught. And writing stuff like leaving a calling card on a bullet is probably not something that I would think they're going to do. Maybe I've watched too many mafia shows. I don't know. But
What it said to me was, again, I'm always like
Yeah,
twisting around looking
no,
for
go
the
for
other
it.
possibilities. The message on the bullet could have easily been sort of a very inside red herring, right? So if you're the executive who doesn't want this, what you say is, this looks like it's a disgruntled customer who's off to get you. So let's just say that there's some other issue, some domestic issue in their life, and it has nothing to do with United Healthcare at all. You'd write that on the bullet as a red herring. Sorry, my dog keeps banging into the desk.
You're fine. It's TikTok. We all have lives, families. You're at home. You're good. My 5-year-old might wander in here at some point, so.
Yeah, so those are like, I just thought it's kind of like that perfect red herring, right? It's trying to throw you off the scent, but throw you down the chain of United Healthcare instead of up the chain of United Healthcare. Just a thought. Again, I always have these twisted thoughts that I'm noodling.
Do you think he's going to be caught? Personal opinion.
Yes, I do. That one I do think so because I didn't think this was so exquisite. At first, I really thought that backpack, which I have mentioned a million times, on Wednesday, I started saying it was bulging. Like that backpack was full, right? So I'm thinking, okay, he shot him. He got into Central Park. He scouted this. He knows that there's a lot of places that are dead zones for cameras in Central Park. Some people think there's no cameras. Not true. There are cameras in Central Park. Some of them are secret locations that the police haven't told about, but there are some, just not that many. But I thought he scouted a place. He took 11 minutes from the entrance of Central Park to the exit. Now, I have done that loop a million times. And on that e-bike, as fast as it goes, might have taken 3.5 to 5 minutes to actually make that
He
distance.
stopped and changed.
And I thought, okay, so what he did with the backpack is he had a full other outfit, maybe even a woman's outfit, that a woman jogger, which would be everybody's jogging at that time and leaving all those footpaths, right? He probably ditched the bike, ditched the backpack, or had another backpack in the backpack so that he could get all the clothes and put them all just so that he wouldn't release evidence in Central Park. And then I thought that northern Central Park loop, the route that he was on the road, that went into Central Park, that goes right by the lake. There's lots of bodies of water in Central Park, but there's one called the lake, and it's literally it butts right up to that roadway. And I thought, well, that wouldn't be hard. You're on a bike anyway. It's a bit of an off-roader. You can go up onto the walking paths, get right up to the lake. There's no fence around that. That's where the boathouse, famous boathouse in Sex and the City and all the rest.
Yeah.
That's where the boathouse. And so you could just hurl that thing as long as you weighted it down. So had he maybe piled some rocks up, to get those in there and then hurl that backpack with all the evidence and the gun maybe into the lake. But he wasn't that good. He just tossed it by the carousel. It is a hidden area, even though you've seen the picture and it looks like it's out on a field for everyone to see. It is very hidden and bouldery all in there. But still, you had to know that was going to be found. So I was surprised. And this, Justin, is why I think he will be found. Because he made a lot of mistakes. He exited the park on the bike with a lot of the same outfit on and didn't realize his cameras are going to chase him all the way through New York. So, yeah, I don't think he's as good at secreting himself away as he thought he was.
What I kind of wonder on this whole thing, because, and this is, I don't know, sometimes maybe it's too many again, maybe it's just too much TV or whatever in the way Hollywood does things. I don't know. And typically I'm not this way.
No, there's never too much TV at 10 o'clock at night on News Nation. Never.
Amazing plug. Perfect plug there. But no, what I'm saying though is like, normally I'm not one, I'm very like, let's just stick to what we know. Like, let's just do this. And I'll speculate to a minimum, right? Because when you have as you know, you have to be responsible with what you say. Otherwise people will run with it and it becomes crazy. So again, speculation. I almost wonder, the firearm that they believe he used was very expensive. The backpack that he had was very expensive.
Rare.
And rare. Yes, very rare.
Yeah.
And I've never seen a firearm that looks like that in my life. It's crazy looking. It's literally it's a spy gun is what it was manufactured to look like.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
It's got a suppressor built into it. So obviously though he planned this out. He chose the weapons. He got to New York 10 days prior. We know that he came in on a bus that originated out of Atlanta, but we don't know if where he got on it. But it almost makes me wonder at this point. And this is kind of just where my mind has gone, is he gets out of New York. We're now on day 4, and you know how this goes. Every day this goes on. It takes longer, but it did take them like 30 days to catch Brian Koberger in the event. They did catch him. They believe that he got on a bus and is gone. He's out of the city. what if because he planned all this stuff, what if he planted a car somewhere along the bus route, like not like maybe at the station, but somewhere else, got off on a bus, got in the car. He's in Canada. His name's not on a flagged list at this point. Gets on an airplane in Canada and is in some, you know, country that doesn't have extradition.
So I thought about that, and actually, one of the commenters, as you were saying this theory, mentioned he's out of the country by now. I actually think he's not. I think what he did was he decided on Port Authority instead of Metro North or the path that takes you to Jersey or the Hudson Line or the LIE or the Long Island Expressway, or excuse me, the LIRR, which takes you out to Long Island. I think because those are so visible. There's so many cameras on those trains and in those particular stations, right? I think he chose Port Authority for a bus to stay off camera. And so to go to an airport or a border crossing, forget it. You know, like he knew at some point that his face was going to be shown, right? And so I do feel like he probably is laying as low as possible and probably walking around with like, thank God it's cold for him, right? The mask doesn't raise any red flags in this kind of cold. It's
No.
39.
And it's been cold, and it's been cold there.
39 degrees today, which is a nice day. It was down to I think into the 20s.
Real quick, when I left NYC and got back to Nashville, it was colder in Nashville than it was in New York.
Oh, really? That's weird, isn't it? That
It's
happens.
been brutal the last few days.
My mom lives in Florida, and there have been some occasions where I've left here, New York area, and flown down to my mom, and it was colder in Florida. It happens on occasion. It's very weird. Wait, there's one more comment that was made as well that I thought was really smart. I'm sorry I couldn't catch the names. They go by so quick. And that is that what if it was a 3D printed gun? I thought that was really fascinating.
That I've not think anybody's talked about that. I think that he probably packed his own ammo. I do think that.
Maybe, well, we certainly etched it or wrote on it, whatever it was. I also wonder if you can 3D print the suppressor. I'm not sure. I really don't know. I know you can 3D print guns, but that's pretty sophisticated when you get to the suppressor level.
I don't know if you could fire that many rounds through a 3D printed gun and it hold up though.
Maybe
I don't
not.
know. I don't know. I don't know enough about that though. So that's just me guessing. Real quick, for somebody did ask a great question. They've asked it a couple of times. They said, "Don't you need an app or a credit card, something to rent an e-bike?" If you rented it, yes, but and you can correct me if I'm wrong. This my understanding is it wasn't like a city bike or something. It was a city bike. Or
No,
wasn't?
so this is a great comment because this is the original investigation we started on Wednesday. City Bike, 100%.
No, she paused herself. Give her a second, guys. She might have. Hold on a second. I'll tell her.
Am I back in?
Yeah,
Sorry.
you paused yourself. I was about to text you, like, do you know you paused yourself? You're good.
So no, my assistant sent me something and it looked like it pertained to this. I'm going to have to can you text Anna and say, put it in Teams. I tell her to put it in Teams and then I can see it and I won't block the TikTok. Whatever it was that Anna wanted me to see, I can't see at the same time because I'm on my phone. But
I told her.
thanks. Yeah, just say put it in Teams. So the issue with the e-bike was that it appeared that he had a city bike and
Okay, so she sent it to me and said, read this now.
They've identified the man suspected of killing United Healthcare executive Brian Thompson. This is Reuters, and they're closing in on him. Eric Adams said that to the New York Post. This net is tightening, he told reporters at a police athletic league holiday party in Harlem. According to the Post, he declined to name the suspect. Wow. There you go. Let me just read that again. Authorities have identified the man suspected of killing United Healthcare executive Brian Thompson and are closing in on him, Mayor Eric Adams says. Well, that's something.
I'm glad that you read it instead of me because your voice for it is just way better at doing it.
You know,
It's almost like you're trained or something, or you do it for a living.
The secret is read slowly. Everybody thinks you got to speed through it, but the secret for broadcasting is slow it way down. Then you don't screw up, and then it sounds like you're efficient. But anyway, the e-bike thing. No, the city bike thing. We all figured it was the city bike. We actually called the parent company of City Bike, which is Lyft. Who knew? And they were very couchy, but they said we direct you to this report that suggests maybe it's not a city bike. So they didn't even know at the time, but they suspected it was not a city bike, and it has come to pass that it was likely not a city bike. But you're right. City bikes have GPS locators. You have to swipe a card, or you've got to use an app to get one out of the dock or back into a dock. Somebody early on, an internet sleuth, had said, "Oh, I have data showing it came out at this time from the dock at 55th, and it went out of New York. They went out of Central Park at 86th on the east side at this time."
People like to make things up.
Yeah, it wasn't true. Well,
People
it
like
was a person, but it wasn't this guy.
people. Well, here's the thing about the fun thing about social media, and it makes news real fun, is that a video will go viral whether it's true or not.
I know.
And oftentimes the non-true ones are the ones that go very viral. And then you spend, at least when you're you, so you have a show. When you're somebody like me, then you spend the next several days trying to correct the misinformation, which is rough. And it's with all the big cases. It was with Gabby's case. It was with Idaho 4. It's with all the big ones. Somebody that's out there to do that. So
it's frustrating. But then again, I will always revert back to this fabulous documentary, and I'm sure everybody who's on this TikTok has probably seen it if you're true crime fans. Don't F with cats, right? It's the Bible of sleuthing on the internet crimes, right? And so as I watched the process, and this was years ago when I watched Don't F with Cats, I realized, like, you're going to make mistakes, as do homicide detectives in those war rooms, right? They fly theories out, they run them down, until they run out. So they make the mistakes on purpose. Well, as part of the solution. And, the internet has been doing the same. The problem is that the internet's public and the homicide detectives aren't. So,
well, the internet too, they'll use AI to create fake things. That's where it is. But I agree. What I've told people when I cover things, because I might, in one of the stories that
what you said is upsetting. Yeah. That they're actually purposely creating as opposed to just making the mistakes.
Yeah, exactly. They're purposely doing it because they'll get paid on that video no matter what. And when you have a case or a story that's developing just quickly, constantly, and one that really comes to mind was Carly Russell, if you remember that one, the woman.
Yes. Oh my God.
So I was putting out updates quickly, and what I had to keep reminding people is like, well, see, that's not true. That's not true. And what I tell people is, like, when I report on a video, or I do a story, it is true with the information that we have at that time. News stories and investigations are fluid. And when we do another update, we may have new information that changes what we had in a previous video. It doesn't make that video or that story incorrect. It just makes the new one more correct with updated information. And that's how I try to explain it.
That's good. Hey, by the way, in the comments as you were talking, they said that one of the sleuthers from Don't F with Cats is actually in your group, named Body Moon. So hi, Body. Love you.
Oh, awesome.
I didn't know that. That's amazing. Very cool. It's literally my Bible of what internet sleuthing looks like in all of those living rooms and bedrooms and offices and everyone's laptops all around the world. I literally believe that's what the image that comes to mind every time people jump on to start digging through a crime.
I should see if I can find out when she says something again. I'll follow her.
AUDIBA.
Well, no, I just got to find her name so I can.
And last name Moon, Body Moon. Oh, look at all these pineapples and bananas. Okay,
yes, so people can send people can send gifts and stuff if they want. They can do them to you too if they want. Yeah, see, I told you Joe would show up.
Hey, Joe! Oh my God, Joe! It's so good to see you there. Oh, and by the way, Joe, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I was down in Florida, like for a nanosecond, taking my kid to University of Miami for a tour. And we went to Joe's Stone Crab, and I was thinking of you, like, oh my God, I wish I could have gotten you in time to come and join us for dinner, but there was no time. And I don't even know if you were down there.
For the record, the internet has aptly named him, or TikTok has aptly named him Papa Petito.
Papa Petito. Oh.
They've named him.
Well, I chat with Joe every so often, and
yeah, same.
We always try to get dinner together, and we keep screwing it up all the time. We plan it, and then there's no time, or something goes wrong, or Anyway, Joe, we're gonna make it happen. We're gonna make dinner happen.
Body, if you could say something, I'm trying to look for a comment. If you're in here, I'll follow you back if I see it.
Yeah, Body.
If not, I can find it. I can do it afterwards. My mods can send me a link. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we'll see. So.
Body Moon. Yeah. Oh, sorry, Wendy. No, that's not it. Yeah, everybody's. No, someone said Body Moon Van. I don't know that that's the name that they're trying to direct us to, but
I think that's what they're saying, but I haven't seen the name pop up, like for me to be able to just hit follow.
Does anyone know Body's handle?
Is it just her name?
Maybe Body Moon Van.
Okay, I was my person told me to check my messages, so I can let me see if I can. My mouse is being
Yeah,
weird.
check messages.
All right. Okay, they sent it to me. I can follow from.
MLF just said they're not going to find the guy. MLF, they just found him. If you're just joining, guys, literally Reuters just passed an alert saying authorities have identified the man suspected of killing the healthcare executive. They're closing in on him. New York City Mayor Eric Adams quoted as saying on Saturday to the New York Post, and he said it at an athletic league holiday party in New York. Like, he didn't even make an official announcement. He just blurted it out at a party to a New York Post reporter. So wait for the
to be determined.
Yeah.
Can I switch gears real quick on a different case that you've been talking about? Because I just kind of want to get your take on this. Let's just switch, and we don't have to stay on it very long. Let's switch to Diddy for just a second. All right. So I'm sure you've probably seen by now that apparently there's leaked court footage that somebody was recording different hearings in courts, or maybe you've not heard this or seen this yet.
I have not seen it yet. When did that cross?
The other day.
Oh, I missed it. I think I was so wound up in the CEO execution that I missed it.
Well, here's kind of what I wanted to chat about, so somebody was recording in the federal court, like you're talking about different like more than once, different hearings, different, and then they leaked them out online. And so obviously, Diddy's defense is running with it. Is from what I've been able to see, there's not a whole lot of articles out there on it yet. So, take that for what that's worth. But the implications of that happening for his court case, is that something that they're arguing that it could severely taint a jury pool because it's now showing information that's supposed to be client-patient or client-attorney privilege.
Well, I'd like to know what it is from the court that they recorded. If it's in a courtroom, it's actually public information. So it's not that
even federal
would be, well, if it's in a courtroom, right? So reporters are allowed to sit in the courtroom and listen to the proceedings, unless it's an in-camera session, which normally, it's very rare that they say, clear the courtroom. They do it on occasion. But what's more troublesome, and it is part and parcel of a package that Diddy's lawyers will present, is that the media has run amok. Like, it's just the toothpaste has left the tube. This thing is a mess. It's all tainted and dirty. This is one example of the extent that the media's, or whomever it was prepared to go to get coverage. They broke the law. The information that they gathered, that's critical. I suspect that if they are this kind of person, they were not allowed in a non-public hearing, right? They would have been in a public hearing. Therefore, that information is fair game. But video.
I'm going to send you one of these articles so you have it afterwards. You don't have to look at it, but it's an XXL magazine talking about the leaked footage, and it'll give you a little bit more information.
So here's the other thing about the way courts operate. Like, some people think, it's no big deal. Somebody just got some pictures. No, like, this is the pinnacle of following rules. Like, a courtroom is the pinnacle of American society where you must follow rules. I remember it when I was a cub reporter 36 years ago. I was in a courtroom in Winnipeg, and it was a murder case, and I was sitting really far back. It's one of these really, really majestic, big, old, beautiful courtrooms that my great-grandfather used to be a judge in. And suddenly, everything was quiet, and I was writing notes, and I realized it was quiet, and I looked up, and the judge admonished me for chewing gum.
Wow.
And it was like a little trident, like pepperminty thing, because I had coffee breath, and I was trying to, I wasn't even like smacking or blowing. It wasn't like that. I had a little tiny piece of gum that I was just trying to deal with the coffee breath. And he must have spotted me, and I was 3/4 of the way back in this massive courtroom, and he admonished me for chewing gum. And I remember my heart was in my toenails. I was so embarrassed. Anyway, it chastened me for the rest of my career to realize.
Well, I'm sure they'll stick with you.
Oh, I mean, and they're all wearing robes and wigs too. So it's almost like Hollywood. If in Canada, they talk about the crown. The crown is the prosecutor, so it's even more daunting. But that's just an example of what it's really like. You don't F with courts. Following a theme, you don't F with courts.
No.
I have seen more reporters banned and their networks banned or their outlets banned because of little slip-ups that they probably didn't think was such a big deal, and it is a big deal. So the fact that somebody's recording in a federal court, inexcusable, and I would say contemptible.
It
And,
is. It is.
someone deserves,
10 years for just the recordings alone. I think there's multiple. It's you're facing up to 10 years per charge.
which is crazy, but I mean, they would never get it. But I do think that they
No.
should get like 3 days, 10 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they should. And I have seen people serving a couple of days for talking out or badgering with the judge, badgering them or trying to argue something out of order. I've seen them be put away, lawyers. So yeah, don't break the rules. Don't ever.
You know what? If people need just a quick crash course on that, just go watch My Cousin Vinny, and
Yeah.
it'll give you all of that, your crash course in the court systems.
I just rewatched that the other day.
I love it. It's one of the greatest movies ever.
So great.
Well, let me switch gears again real quick. I don't want to stay on Diddy too much because I know that's just been that's going to be for the next several months something that we're going to continue talking about. But because people don't ever get to ask you that many questions, let me just ask you a few things, if you don't mind, that followers have asked to ask you. Are you okay with that? So you get to know a little bit about you. And for people in here, we can go back to UHC in a minute, but I just want to make sure that people who've asked questions get an opportunity to get those answered. So the first one was, you've interviewed countless people. Who was your most memorable guest and why?
Oh.
And just forget that Gabby's family's in here.
Well, Joe always says no. He was the most tight-lipped person ever. He talked to me on messaging, but he did very few interviews. Honestly, I think I have a couple categories. One was the most sort of humiliating and awful experience, and one was like the most it was like a career pinnacle. And I think career pinnacle was Yasser Arafat, who was leader of the Palestinian.
I know he is, yeah.
Yeah. For all the youngins out there.
That's true. Just because I know doesn't mean that they know.
I know. So Yasser Arafat was PLO chairman, and for decades he held a leadership role in various different names within Palestinian people. He was loved and hated by people all over the world, including Palestinians. And he was instrumental in many of the Intifada uprisings all throughout sort of the 90s and 2000s. And in 2002, we were in the midst of quite an ugly Intifada, and I was in the West Bank because that's where he was. His headquarters was in the West Bank. And I think it followed one of those disco bombings or some terrible thing, and there was a lot of consternation between the two sides, Israelis and Palestinians. And the Israeli Defense Forces had his headquarters surrounded, and they were like it was in rubble. Like there was a lot of rubble. And he was in there, pinned down, no electricity, no nothing. And it had been like, I think 10 or 20 days or something, and he was running out of medicine for himself, right?
Oh, wow.
And he allowed me to scramble over the rubble, which was batshit crazy, given the fact that Israeli tanks were all trained on this building and the rubble. But he allowed me and my crew, there were 3 of us, to scramble over the rubble in the middle of the night and get into the headquarters and then do this interview. And it was for NBC at the time. And I remember thinking, like, any minute now, like one of these tank shells could come in and just blow us all.
That's crazy.
Smithereens, because they see all this movement, right? And then also Arafat said, we do the interview in the middle of the night. And I'm like, wait, what? He goes, yep, we do the interview at 4 a.m. I'm like, okay, man, whatever you say. And then he said, and we have dinner beforehand. I'm like, oh God, I got a live show here. But anyway, so we had to sit at a long table because he had all these sort of acolytes and disciples with him. We just sit at a long table, and I sat right beside him. P.S. I had the flu at the time, so I was.
Okay. So you felt miserable too.
Yeah, I had the flu.
I know. So you felt miserable also.
I felt miserable. Yeah. Anyway, I sat beside him, and as sort of Middle Eastern feasts are, there's all these little plates all over the table, and you're just supposed to help yourself with these little plates. And one of the plates has like half-cut hard-boiled eggs, which, if you have the flu, is about the worst smell and sight and thought in the world. And Arafat had these tiny little hands, very pointed little tiny fingers, like really. So I remember just sort of like, wow, for a big portly kind of guy, he was short, but he was portly.
Yeah.
Little itty bitty girl fingers, with pointy little fingers. And he was picking up the eggs and putting them on my plate. And I was like, I had like maybe 3 things on my plate because I just desperately couldn't eat anything, but I was trying to like pretend I was eating. And he's like, oh, these are good. These are good. I had to eat one of these eggs that had come from his fingers. with the flu. And I remember thinking like, I'm going to barf all during the interview. But anyway, I made it through that dinner. And then we sat for this interview. He said I only had 10 minutes and he was bloviating in gibberish for the first 10 minutes. And I was panicking thinking like Tom Brokaw is going to kill me. I'm not getting any sound bites here. But then I started pushing his buttons, saying things like, you don't have control of your people, do you? Like, you're not calling the shots. Like I was asking him about tamping down violence. And I said, I'm getting the sense you don't have control of them. Like, I assumed you could tell them and they would do what you say. And then he's like, I am Chairman Arafat. He screamed at me. And it was a really cool interview. It got really good after that. And he let me sit for an hour, going back and forth. And I ended up getting good stuff. But
that's awesome.
That was the craziest batshit thing I ever did,
That's a great story.
Other than breaking into Afghanistan and going against the retreating Taliban as they were murdering journalists. But that is just an interview. That's just a bad experience.
Yeah, especially being a woman journalist too with the Taliban. That's somebody asked a question real quick while they were in here, and I don't want to forget it. They said, "Who do you look up to in journalism?"
Oh wow!
I thought that was a good question.
There are several people that I look up to. Jack Ford. So if you don't know who Jack Ford is, Google him. Jack Ford is a Yale law professor, but before doing all his Yale law, he was the anchor of Good Morning America on the weekends and also the Today Show. And he was this incredible prosecutor and defense attorney, most affable person you'll ever meet, who decided to go into television. I mean, he was doing analysis during OJ and everybody spotted this guy and said, oh, this guy's great. So he had this great TV career and I ended up getting partnered with him on Court TV for 5 years. And I wasn't a lawyer. So I was the only person, on the air at Court TV who wasn't a lawyer, and realized I needed to keep my mouth shut and listen to everything that my colleagues would tell me. And wow, for 5 years, I sat beside this guy and I was in a Yale law class for 5 years on his set where he taught me everything. Every time the sound went down, every time they were in sidebar, he taught me everything. So I owe my career in true crime and legal coverage to Jack Ford. But then before that, there were people in Canada who really set me on a course for doing what I do. Barbara Frum was like the, how do I describe her? She was this figure who did a interview program after the national news, very deep dive interview program. And her son, David Frum, is actually quite a prominent American now. This is a Canadian family, but he became an American. He worked in George W. Bush's administration, and he was a chief speechwriter, I believe, for George W. Bush. But Barbara Frum was a woman in the 70s and 80s who was a top media journalist, television personality, but a deep dive thinker. And I remember everybody saying, like, that's what you're going to be. You're going to be Barbara Frum. You're going to be Barbara Frum. So I always looked up to her. Never did get a chance to meet her before she died too early in her 50s of cancer. But then there were also two guys on CBC radio on a program called As It Happens that did interviews the way I do interviews. And I do them because of those guys. And it's the interview where you talk to people as people, not as a big, important anchor woman. I just remember the one phrase that I heard referring to dogs and cats in a story. The anchor said, well, what about the puppy dogs and the kitty cats? I mean, what's going to happen to them? And that was my license right then and there to say, yeah, you can talk as a human. You don't have to talk as a cyborg,
That's awesome.
That was Michael Enright on Michael Enright and Alan Maitland used to do this show at 6 o'clock called As It Happens on the radio on CBC. And that's how I got my interview style, was from them. But I got my chutzpah to think that, yeah, as a woman, I'm going to head off to the US and try and break in there on my own. I don't have any family here, but I'm going to do it because of her.
It's awesome, especially that when you started, it was still very male dominated.
Oh.
It probably still is, really, but
yeah, it's pretty good.
It's getting better.
Women really are running a lot of the shows. Like most of the EPs these days are women. A lot of the executives are women. I sense very little of that now, more from the viewers actually. Sometimes like, man, you should be more ladylike, but that doesn't happen that often. But
that gives the same vibes as you should smile more. You'd be prettier if you smile. Screw that.
I know, right? But I do
Do
tell my
that.
son a lot, by the way. I do tell my son, you should smile more. You have a beautiful smile. But I will say that, like, in 36 years of broadcasting, the first two-thirds were humiliating as a woman. Like, just the way I was treated, the things I had to wear, say, do. I was told I couldn't wear glasses. Are you kidding me?
Wow.
Yeah, Dick Ebersol, one of the most famous, successful producers of all time, NBC Sports. He actually launched with Lorne Michaels as Saturday Night Live. This is a guy who's a titan in the industry, and he forbade me from wearing glasses that I needed to wear on the air during the Sydney Olympics in 2000.
Wow.
Right?
So you just didn't get to see.
Well, that was it. I mean, it was like
No, you can't. I wear contacts, so you can't see. You can't see.
I didn't wear contacts for 25 years. I wore these glasses, and I never wore contacts. But I would have to, like, I would do my MSNBC work, and I'd have my glasses on, and then I'd pull them off, and I'd have to do the NBC work. Dumb. It's so like short-sighted. Pardon the pun.
It is, yeah. I wish I had my thing pulled up. I'd have done a rim shot for you, but. All right, there was another one. Somebody asked in here too in a second. I'm trying to find where it was because they asked it here and I had written it down. Okay, yeah. How do you handle your emotions from the hard stories that you have to report? How do you separate it? Because I can, huh?
That's a really good question.
Yeah, and I'll say this before you answer. For me, the ones that I'm not able to separate are the ones involving children.
Yeah.
I cannot separate it. Those are the ones I can't compartmentalize.
Yes, that is hard for my whole team. In fact, we talk as a group all the time about stories. Can we do this? Should we do this? Is this going to be too hard? And if we are doing it, is everyone okay? Does anybody need to avail themselves of the services that Nexstar and News Nation provides, all the counseling and everything? Do. For me, I'm a little bit more hardened because I come from the 80s, starting in journalism in the 80s and mid 80s. But I changed on 9/11. Like, something happened to me. I don't know what it is.
I think a lot of us did. I think.
Well, I nearly died. I think.
Why? I didn't know that. I know you were at ground zero. I do know that.
And I escaped the debris coming down on me by breaking a window and diving, and like it was a terrifying. I know what terrorism truly feels like and does to you. It's just apocalyptic, like. So I did change, and I lost my ability to rein in my emotions after that day. And when I say that, I don't mean I became histrionic. I mean I cried and I couldn't control it. Like, out of nowhere, waterworks would start in very embarrassing places, like on a plane, on a stage, giving a speech, like all of a sudden. And it's taken this, 23 years to mitigate that. I don't just spontaneously burst into tears anymore, but I did for about 10 years.
That's a lot of trauma. It's a lot of trauma.
Yeah, and I thought I was fine, but what does happen is talking about difficult stories. I used to be able to do it before, and I struggle with it now, and I actually do like break up on the air sometimes. I do struggle and have to like.
Human. You're human.
Yeah, and I don't like it though, because sometimes it's like ugly cry kind of thing. It's ugly stop, it's ugly choke. It's not. I don't know. It's what people could make memes out of and make fun of me, but sometimes it's really hard to control that.
Sometimes with mine, I'll with certain ones. I got one case in particular that I'm thinking of, which I will spare you the details of it because it's heinous. But like when I would do the videos on it, it was very hard for me to control emotion, and I'm like that too. I don't want to show emotion on it. But then sometimes I get over it. And I'm like, you know what? When the situation of the story, and especially in this, the video format, short form, format, when the story really does need that much awareness, sometimes the raw emotion can help it, really convey the importance of what we're talking about. So.
Yes, and I'll tell you something else about raw emotion. Maybe 9/11 did that to a lot of people, like you mentioned. But I remember seeing clips of Dan Rather and Tom Brokaw on talk shows. I think they were on David Letterman. And Dan Rather cried. I mean, Dan Rather never showed any emotion. And I think Tom Brokaw at one point choked up as well. But I remember the moment, and I thought, whoa, okay, it's not just me. I get it. This is real. This is happening to even the most stalwart. And I felt like Dan Rather wasn't crying at a moment that it was like the ugly cry moment, like the part that was like, oh, that doesn't make sense. Whoa, what's happening? This is weird. It wasn't like a Hollywood moment. But I think that while it mitigates, it never goes away. And you know, in that time as well, 6 years after 9/11, let's see, no, 4 years after 9/11 in 2005, I had my first child. And then in 2007, I had my second. And I think that also changes the metric for a lot of people in my business.
Well, so that's actually a phenomenal segue, because one of the questions was, how has being a parent influenced your approach to journalism? That was like, it's almost like I didn't send her the questions beforehand, but it's almost like I did with that one.
Well, let me give you one anecdote that will put it into perspective. I was on the air for CNN. I was on the 11 a.m. show at that time, 2012, I want to say, 2012, I think. And towards the end of my show, like I think 40 minutes maybe into the show, I'm getting like messages in my IFB saying there's a school shooting, but it's an elementary school. I'm like, wait, what? There's never a school shooting in an elementary school. I said, it's got to be a mistake. It's got to be middle school. Even that would be awful, but it's got to be a mistake. And they're like, no, it's really a school shooting at an elementary school. Turned out to be Newtown. And as my show was coming to the end, I was starting to get some of the beginnings of it. Kids are running. There are victims. We don't know how many. Maybe they're just the teachers. We're not sure. And that began CNN's coverage of Newtown. But I got off the air and immediately gathered my belongings and got into a news van, which is weird for an anchor. You don't usually go out and do.
Yeah, you're not using the field.
Dailies. Like I'm in the field a lot, but not
like
get in the van, go. That was my local news career. Get in the van and go. But I got in the van and started driving to Newtown from New York City, and I'm driving up the Hudson River, and the photographer who's driving, and I'm in the passenger seat. It comes over 10-10 winds that it's likely 20 children and educators, right? And we just fell silent. And I remember starting to cry at that moment because I have two little kids in a school across the street from where I live. And they are, I think at that time, oh gosh, what were they? 13. So, 6, 7, something like that. They're in kindergarten and second grade or something. And I had to drive right by them. I couldn't stop. And they're under lockdown because I live in Connecticut, right? And the Newtown is in Connecticut. So I'm processing the horror of what we just learned, that these are 20 kids that are likely all first graders. That's what we learned at the beginning. And those are my kids. They're in the same age group, and their school is being locked down, and we are neighbors with Newtown. And I couldn't stop. And that all I wanted to do was get to my kids and get them out of the school, get them in my house and get them safe at home. And I couldn't. I had to drive right by, and that was one of the worst moments to process family and story at the same time.
Yeah, it's scary having kids, especially young kids. Like I was talking about the one that happened. It was much smaller, obviously, but still terrible. The one in California where the two kindergartners at the very small Adventist school. My daughter starts kindergarten next year.
Oh, wonderful!
And she's in preschool now, so she's 5. And it's just like the thought is terrifying, because when you look at a school like that one at Feather River, it's 35 kids in the K through 8. You can't, as a parent, I don't think you can feel much safer than that.
I know. Well, and listen, if you had been to the town, Newtown is just, bucolic and idyllic and lovely and tiny and special. And I mean, shit. It literally can happen everywhere, anywhere and everywhere.
Columbine was a nice, that was a nice, Littleton's a nice area. And I was in high school when that happened. I was a junior, and that was the first time. And that changed everything too. That was one of those defining moments.
Defining. Yeah, that one was, school shootings, they're, I hate to say it, you can't really remember the last one, where it was and what the name was and how many, they're so frequent. But Littleton was the first of the chain of all.
Yeah, there were some before them, but not really. And I think I looked up the other day, I think there's been 380 school massacres since then, or school shootings since then.
I'd say at least.
Yeah, the numbers changed depending. I was trying to get the numbers real quick. It was like that. It was like 360,000 kids have been affected by school violence, and I forget the number of deaths versus injured. But even so, even just witnessing it is.
Yes, that changes them forever. And by the way, there's a category, right? Like how many people were actually shot. If it's one person, does it count as a school shooting? You know what I mean? Like, so there's these categories.
Yeah,
If
a mass shooting, it has to be like, what is it, three people, not including the shooter.
yeah, I'm trying to remember 3 or 4, but that's just for
Mass shootings.
mass shooting. Like it doesn't have to be a school, but I think for
Okay.
school shooting, sometimes they're just categorized. Like if a gun goes off and no one's killed, it's sometimes considered a school shooting. Sometimes it's not. You know, like there's different ways to categorize the numbers, but I think we're in the thousands of those.
Yeah, probably. I mean, probably so.
Jesus.
Um, all right. So talking about the things too, somebody said you've covered numerous historic events from 9/11 to the Iraq War. Which story had its most profound personal impact on you and why?
Well, so without question, 9/11 had the most
Yeah,
profound.
I kind of figured that'd be the answer, but they asked anyway.
And
So
it physically changed me. Like as I mentioned, or if anyone's just joining, it just physically changed me. I was unable to manage emotions after nearly dying on 9/11 down at the trade tower because the South Tower had already fallen, and I was still walking and running towards it, and the North Tower fell with me, kind of within. It's hard to remember, but it was about 2.5 block, 3 block range, and I was kind of under, not on the footprint, but under it, and got hit with it, and so it was brutal. But the aftermath of that was going to Afghanistan, and that was the most grueling, rewarding, like climbing Everest, kind of grueling, rewarding work I've ever done. Because, as you know, the time change means that a primetime show at 9 o'clock at night, which was what I was catapulted in right away after 9/11 to
yeah,
Afghanistan and beyond every night, called first a region in conflict, and then Ashleigh Banfield on location on MSNBC. To do that show at 9 o'clock at night, it meant middle of the night live where I was. So
gotcha. Yeah,
depending on where, because the time changes, or the time zones were a little weird every time I was moving countries. But I think in Afghanistan it was 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. So I had to get to a physical location because everything was in the field, right? Safely set up, get the satellite phone up and running, because at that time that's what we were using.
wow, yeah,
You know, find the Indian Ocean and away you go. And then do the hour-long show with nothing but this. I had a legal pad and a pen. I didn't have a phone. I didn't have a laptop. I didn't have any communications, nothing. So I would get on a sat phone call 1 hour before we got in the van to get out to our location, or sometimes an armored car, sometimes it was whatever.
insane.
Yeah, I would get on the sat phone with the producer, and we'd go over what the whole hour of the show was. I was putting in 2 big 6-minute chunks of local production that I would shoot during the daylight hours, right? Walk and talk, showing people, interviewing, leaders and all the rest. And then I would broadcast the show. So think about that. You're broadcasting and traveling and setting up a location and tearing down a location all night. But during the daylight hours, you got to collect the news. You got to go out, you got to shoot it, you got to interview people, you got to interview the leaders. So there was no sleep. So we would sleep 2 hours at night. And if we were lucky, we got another 2 hours in the morning. And that went on for a year. And I was absolutely, I'm convinced I will have shaved 20 years off my expected life because of the horrors of my sleeping and lack of sleep for those, that year of hell.
Yeah, I could see that. So did you have like basically the whole studio with you in whatever vehicle you were in, and you just had to get there and set up, or was it set up wherever they told you to go?
No one told us. We were unilaterals. We didn't even, we weren't even, this is before embeds, right? This is before people even knew the word embed. We were unilaterals. We were in the middle of both fighting forces. So you got the Allies this way, you got the Afghans and Al Qaeda this way, and we're like zipping up the middle with
Wow.
no protection and no help. What we did was we would pay local authorities to give us soldiers to guard us. So it was called baksheesh. It's kind of like, bribe money. We would give baksheesh to the governor of Nangarhar province to allow us safe passage and give us like 25 men. And they gave us like 15 men on point with an RPG, and everybody had knockoff Kalashnikovs, and 10 men on rear with RPG and Kalashnikovs. And we'd be in the middle, and we'd be like traveling as this little triple caravan. And I laugh about it now, but it's the craziest thing ever. We're in this little
It's insane.
armored car, and I'm driving this way. I'm looking out the front windshield, and I can see the 15 men on point. They're in a pickup truck, and they're all loaded into the bed of the pickup, bouncing along in this awful like dry riverbed. And one of them has the RPG, and he's bouncing like this, pointing at us. And I'm like, this is
That's not terrifying at all.
not terrifying at all. I'm like, I guess this is just the way it's going to be. But yeah, so that was scary stuff. You know, traveling that way as a unilateral doing war coverage. Um, I can't believe that I'm okay. I can't believe I made it out of there. I can't believe I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know how much bad was actually going on. Like, but we did. We made it. It was just physically grueling, and it was terribly, terribly dangerous. And I had several guns put to my head at checkpoints by, you know, hopped up 15-year-old Taliban or other fighting forces, because there's just so many cultural fighting forces in Afghanistan at the time, who would say, you know, you're breaking curfew. And they would say it in Pashto, or they would say it in Farsi, or whatever they were speaking, because it was a lot of different languages too. But we always had a translator with us. And I started to learn little bits of the language. And so when we got to the checkpoints, these kids, I call them kids because they were all teenagers on heroin, they were like mystified by a woman in the middle of the night in the passenger seat, not in the back. Like, and so we took them off guard by that. Like, this was strategic. And then I'd start speaking their language, saying like, how you doing? How's your mom? How's your mom? How's your dad? How many siblings? How many brothers? You married? You got kids? And they would just be like, yeah, you guys can go. This is crazy. I'm tripping. You know? And I had a couple of guns put to my head and was able to like offset the fear of the checkpoint after curfew that way.
You need to write a book. Is that like on your radar
You know,
of all the things that you're doing? You know, you don't even have to write it. You just need somebody to tell these stories and have a ghostwriter do it.
no, I know. Sometimes I don't want to go into them that deep. You know, that's
Okay.
the way it was for a long time. Like, here I am telling you this, and it's fine. But so maybe I'm over that. I don't know. But I
Well,
didn't
that's a
really
decision that you got to make. But I mean, the stories are fascinating,
crazy
and
stuff.
especially with some of the things that you covered, being a woman, being in the era that you were in.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, not that it was that far ago, but the 80s and 90s were very, very different from today.
Yeah, and hey, this is the 2000 season. I used to
In the
look
early
at
2000s.
Christiane Amanpour. If she can do it, I can do it. I'm sure she went through a hell of a lot more trouble than I did, though.
Yeah, probably, but still, that's a bit of trouble. There are some more questions that came in real quick about the UHC thing. I'm not trying to be all over the place, but these were good ones. And I actually kind of would like you to answer this one because this question has been a bane of my existence for the last couple of days. The question is, please clarify the pictures of the UHC shooter and why people think that they are different people.
Well, I can't speak to that. I think they're the same
Yeah,
person. I looked at
I
their
do
hands.
too.
Those little bony fingers and thumbs are exactly the same as the hostel picture and the shooter picture in Starbucks. Those are the same hands. Look closely. I did it on my show last night. The very long, skinny, bony fingers and extra long, bony thumbs, like really long, crazy, almost disjointed thumbs. I don't think they're different people. I'm not sure
I
where.
don't either, but people they have decided that this is the case, that they are different people. So, but the other one was, why would the UHC shooter put their backpack in a paper bag and leave it in the park? I don't know if we could. I don't know if she can answer that, guys.
I don't
Maybe
think
you
it was
can.
in a paper bag. And I'll only say that because the photos we have are of the backpack sitting right on the ground. And the way the NYPD decided to retrieve it was with an excavator. So they took the ground all around it up and lifted the backpack into evidence. So they didn't take paper bag off it that I know of. Maybe there's a report I'm missing somewhere, but maybe they saw a paper bag and took it off and saw the backpack and then retrieved everything. But I haven't seen that report yet. Is there a report out for that this month?
I haven't seen that report. That was the first time I'd seen this question. So my mods are pulling questions and sending me some if I'm missing them too. So that's just one that they asked. So I read that one verbatim.
People should know that in some of the images, the backpack appears to be black. I'm seeing a commenter and some, and you know it's lighter gray, but sometimes it's literally just the quality of the surveillance cam with movement and the darkness of the streets and the shadows. But we actually debated this as well. We knew full well that this was him on the bike and the backpack looked black, but it was right before another shot that picked him up and it's gray. So we knew it was just it was
A
just
camera thing.
it was just a camera thing. So for anybody who's wound up about, that's a guy riding with a black backpack, not a gray backpack, it's gray all the way. It's gray all the way. In fact, we got video last night that was exclusive, and it's the only video that shows him stopping at the stoplight and then crossing 59th into the park. And I'm like, wow, he obeyed that rule and sat there at the light. I couldn't believe it. He's parked there on his e-bike waiting for the light to turn. You know, they just shot someone a minute ago, and
He's just trying not to bring attention to himself, hide in plain sight.
well, there was a fair bit of traffic on 59, so he literally didn't bust the light because there was quite a bit of traffic. You can see all that on our video that we got, and we got several angles of it because it's that building right on the corner. It's a Trump building. It's an apartment building, and there's surveillance video from multiple angles watching him come up 6th Avenue to the stoplight and then crossing into the park. These are the videos that we got, and it's all gray backpack.
All right, so there you go. You guys have heard it. They want to make, sometimes people can be very helpful on the internet when it comes to crimes, and sometimes they cannot. That's how I'm going to word that.
Sometimes you're right. No, you're. Hey, by the way, there's a lot of people who have mentioned in the comments the Kentucky sheriff who shot the Judge Mullins.
Mm-hmm.
There, we had some breaking information on that this week, and I'm not sure if your viewers
I haven't seen it yet. So yeah, I mean,
well, let me tell you, we have a producer named Allison Weiner who is just gumshoe. I mean, she should be a detective. She's so good. She got her hands on a recording of a deposition of one of the women who was raped, or at least did sex for favors, which is basically considered rape because she's an inmate, and having sex in Judge Mullins' chambers with that deputy who got fired and then imprisoned for it, right? So it's a fait accompli. It's a crime that was committed. And she said in the deposition, I saw a lot of this. I was in there a lot. I saw lots of female inmates having sex with lots of different people, including Judge Mullins. And then the question was, wait, hold on. You saw Judge Mullins having sex in his chambers with inmates for favors? And she said yes. So we now have that. And apparently we're getting our hands on more recordings like that. So now the plot thickens, right? Now, I mean, we all knew there was something so incredibly shady. Why would a friend and bailiff who protected the judge turned sheriff just pick his gun up and point blank execute him? So obviously there was probably going to be some depositions coming. This is my guess. This is my guess. There were going to be some depositions coming because Mullins, I think, was supposed to be deposed that week. I think that maybe he was going to implicate Steins and say, yeah, he was doing it too. I don't know. Judge Steins is the sheriff who is the alleged shooter. He's the shooter. You can see him on camera. Whether he's the murderer, he's the alleged murderer. But yeah, that's all coming. We're going to find out what the filth and dirt and foulness was.
That was so I live in the South, and unfortunately, I know they can happen everywhere, but it seems to be a lot in the South. There's a lot of corruption with the judicial and police, especially in the smaller towns. And you look at like that story. You look at I think Alec Murdaugh's a really good example of that. Like being able to, people will turn turn away, look away for so long. It took the FBI and SLED getting involved for him to go down. So I think that's just unfortunately kind of a Southern thing. Good old boys kind of club is that they'll get away for.
Very upsetting to hear about a judge. I know about.
It's very upsetting to hear about a judge. Yeah.
The level. Remember, I said this is the level of rule following in America. Like for me, Chambers is just it's like the holy grail of places, and I'm just so upset to hear that this kind of thing, like letting women have an ankle bracelet because they can't afford them. They have to be able to pay for an ankle bracelet to get out on bail, and they couldn't afford them, but they would give them the ankle bracelet if they just did
favors.
In Chambers, blah, blah. Anyways.
It's absolutely.
I kind of wondered why there was that camera in the corner. At first I thought, is it a security camera or is it something else? Is it there to catch something?
He took page out of Diddy's playbook. So
maybe. Listen, again, this is just theory.
I know it's hearsay. It's all.
Someone just asked in the comments, who is in prison right now that I would want to interview? And I always had this list, right? Ted Kaczynski for sure. I just wanted to.
That'd be a good one.
Yeah. And Zachariah Moussaoui, he's at the Supermax. I think they call him the 20th bomber on 9/11, but it's never really been proven. I would love to be able to ask him some questions, Zachariah Moussaoui. I always wanted to interview Charlie Manson before he died.
Yeah, that would have been a good one.
Oh, right? Crazy. You would have gotten a lot of gibberish, but at least some insight as he aged. I always wanted to interview Susan Smith, but the lead would never allow her to do interviews. And now we've seen her talking for the first time in 30 years. And let me see, am I missing somebody? I know I'm missing a few, but off the top of my head, those are the biggies.
What do you think the biggest case of 2024 is going to be? I mean, I know that's obviously subjective, but
I hope.
Do what?
Idaho. Oh,
Idaho.
2024. I thought you meant
Let's
25.
say four.
2024. I have to.
We've had some weird ones this year.
What's that?
We've had some weird ones this year.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like what happened this year as opposed to what continued to be adjudicated throughout the year with hearings. And my memory is terrible. I can't tell you what I had for breakfast.
Fair enough.
But probably this one. This
You think this? You think this over Diddy?
No, actually, now that you mention it,
I think Diddy's the biggest one, but that could be just because I'm so deep into it now.
the colossal failure of of seeing any of the pattern prior to Diddy's arrest, I think, is pretty massive. That's why I didn't even know it was this year. I'm like, yeah, oh yeah, I just felt like it was going on for decades.
But it had been going on for decades. That's the thing.
Yeah, but I think the CEO assassination. I don't know. I think Diddy is bigger because it's had more headlines. It's had more time for headlines. But this is a turning point, right? Because of how we discussed earlier in this talk, how the internet responded. Yay,
Yeah.
like yay, murder. I'm like, okay, whoa, 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 whoa. You know, when Bin Laden was shot and killed by SEAL Team 6, I remember feeling relief, but it would not have taken me to the point where I would go out in front of the White House and dance, despite
No.
the horrors that he perpetrated on this country. 3,000 people dead. I nearly died because of Bin Laden, but I never would have gone out saying "Ding dong, the witch is dead" in front of the White House, and yet there it was, dancing and jubilation, and I thought, oh, that brings me to the shit that I see in all these other countries that I've been to. That's what they do. They dance and celebrate death and murder and retribution. And we've always been a higher order because we don't. And I don't want to slip into that. And I feel like the way the internet is responding to the CEO death is very reminiscent of this. We're going down a dirty spiral. This is how empires fail. It's like you chisel away all these little things, who you are as a people, what you're willing to join, and I don't know, what you're willing to sacrifice for how a base emotion might make you feel. Look, I was glad Bin Laden was dead. I wanted that to happen, but celebrating is different, and I'm worried. So that's why I sort of think maybe this killing might be up there, like with the Diddy. We've had Epstein's,
Yeah.
we've had Nygaard's, we've had all these things. Remind me to talk about Nygaard, by the way.
I want to address something. Somebody said that like, you don't look interested in the conversation. Talking to me, like, no, I'm very interested in the conversation, but I'm also ADHD, so I can read your comments to try to see if there's something we need to ask her, and still listen and hear everything she says. Believe me, I am very interested in our conversation. That's why we're having it.
I'm reading comments too. Not when I'm talking, because I can't do that. But when
Yeah,
you're
I can listen and read at the same time.
me too. I listen and I read it at the same time, and I'm watching a lot of the comments. I just can't see names and comments. I can either read the comment and then it's already gone. But that's why I think the healthcare story might be the defining story of 2024, because we're there. As a society, we just might be there. Where he got his, and that's sad, and that hurts me, because I still believe that this country is the greatest country in the world, along with Canada. And I fly an American flag, and I put the bunting out on Memorial Day. I am a big, pious American. I want to keep being that way, and I feel real ugly and sad when I see celebrating.
And I agree with you. I don't agree with with murder. Right? That's not something I condone. But at the same time, and it's not like a but. It's justifying. I understand people's frustration. Do I think? But and the thing about a CEO too, you know how it works. CEOs have. Yes, they have power, but they have limited power, right? Most of your decisions are going to go through a board. He was the CEO for what, a year and a half, 2 years max, something like that. So the guy who did it, I'm going to be very curious to know what the motive was. I think that he wanted attention. He wanted to make a name, and he's done that. He wanted to get people's attention, and people are listening. But all they're going to do is put somebody else in that CEO position. And it's not going to change. It's not going to affect the change that you want. You said at the beginning of this, there are other ways to impact change.
Right. This is terror, right? So if the motive is actually healthcare related and not domestic or investigative, the DOJ, et cetera, there's lots of avenues of motive here. But if the motive is in fact a disgruntled customer of United Healthcare, then this is terrorism. I believe that Americans don't abide by terrorism as a solution. I am sure that everybody would agree with me. They shouldn't believe that terrorism is the answer. That's why, again, we're the higher order. But terrorism is, I'm going to do something terrifying to affect change, political change. And that's where I don't want us to go. We're better than that. We are more strategic. We are more able to, like I said at the beginning of this, we're more able to organize and boycott and effectuate change without bloodshed. Again, come on. We are not, the Mongol hordes. Get over the fact that violence and anger is the answer. Get smarter. Better things happen. More change happens when you don't go down the spiral of violence and terror as an answer.
Somebody asked a question: because of Anthem rolling back their thing, did it already affect change? I'm going to answer that this way. With Anthem specifically, I believe that change was affected in spite of this. I think the reason that Anthem got change in that was because the internet had taken that story, what was going to happen. Do you know about that, the rollback of the anesthesia policy?
And actually, Kathy Hochul the governor of New York, made a very, very strident statement about it, like "Hail to the no." That's my assessment of her statement.
Your version of it, yeah.
But
she's fun.
Yeah, there were three states that were sort of coming out very quickly regarding the rollback of
Connecticut, New York, and Missouri.
Yeah, and so for those who don't know, Anthem was considering rolling back how much they would cover in anesthesia, depending on how long you'd be under. And then if you needed to be under for longer during your surgery, you're going to have to cover the rest of that. And so, I think the change may have been partly because of the state's reaction and Kathy Hochul's reaction, maybe partly because of this. I'm not sure. I'm sad, though, because I don't think that this is the right thing to do. I think, again, you never want bullets to be the answer, and you don't want to reward murder, because that's what this is. It's murder. You don't want to reward murder. And so I feel like I really hope that Anthem succumbed to Kathy Hochul and the governor's reactions as opposed to.
Well, I think that and the public pushback too, because there was a lot of videos going on about it, and I think that public sentiment was bad. And even I did a video saying, "Hey, you know what? Call if you're an Anthem customer in these states, call them, push back." And I even said, even if you're not in those states, still push back, because typically when they roll it out in 3 states, it's a trial market.
Yeah, and also go to your company. If you're at a company that only offers you one healthcare option, and it's, say, mine is United. Somebody was asking me. I said it earlier, but mine's United.
And she had a bad experience recently with United. She was talking about at the beginning of this.
This week, $4,200, butt kiss. I'm stuck on the tab for $4,200 on a service, 0 coverage, and but my company only offers that. So again, organize, get all your employees to say to HR, we want another option. We don't like our healthcare company, and start putting the pressure, from the grassroots to effectuate change. Because I'm with you. I think this is insane that we're stuck with these lousy options.
They're lousy options.
Regularly. They're lousy, but there are some that are good. Like, I wish I had it in front of me, but there's this great list that one of our desk producers put out to our staff at News Nation this week that showed the ratings.
Aetna's a great company.
What's that?
Aetna's great.
It was low. It was lower though in terms of like how many they're bad in the denials compared to some other ones. Gosh, I wish I had it in front of me. Darn it. But yeah, like United was the worst of 10.
And the thing is, United used, so back in a previous life, I worked. I was insurance licensed, and I worked in medical device, DME, and pharma sales. And when I sold insulin pumps specifically, when I saw Aetna or UHC come across, I was like, "Oh, this is a slam dunk. I'll have this pump out in 3 days." And those were the ones I would hit first, and it has come a long way. I would always get approvals from those two, without fail.
Well, they're now
Let's change.
On that, I'm so frustrated because I can't use my phone to grab that email. Maybe I can find it as I'm talking to you, though.
Do you have a computer or tablet near you? I have a computer right behind me.
I do, but the phone is perched on it, and I'm going to try. And when I move, you're going to see me do this.
We need to get you one of these guys right here that you can put your phone in, Ashleigh. Get you one of these, and you can put your phone in.
No, I don't do enough of it. I used to have one of them somewhere, but because I do most things on my
Yeah.
I do most on cameras. Let me just see. I'm going to see if I can't find this because I really, really want you guys to hear this list. Um,
And if you have to like go out and like if you want to send something to me and me read it or whatever, I can do that too.
ah, I know I'm going to find it because it wasn't. It's not that. It's not that. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Claim denial rates by insurance company. All right. All right. So claim denial rates. Kaiser Permanente, 7% denial rate. Oscar, 12%. Am Better, 14%. Industry average, 16%. That's industry average. That's not the name of it, right? 16% is the industry average. Now we're going to go below the industry average. Blue Cross Blue Shield, 17%. Cigna, 18%. Molina, 19%. Aetna, 20%. CareSource, 20%. Anthem, 23%. Medica, 27%. And United Healthcare, 32% denial rate.
That's huge.
How do you like that?
That's huge.
I'm looking for the source on this. Hang on a second. Value Penguin Lending Tree. Value Penguin / Lending Tree. That's the source on this. And Lending Tree does, does the comparatives, right? So I don't think they necessarily, I shouldn't say this, but I'm guessing they don't have a dog in the fight. They're literally doing the comparatives for their customers.
They're not even, they're not even insurance based.
Right.
One thing, and I won't get too high on this soapbox, but one thing that I get very frustrated with when it comes to health insurance is you typically have a person, the first line of defense for the insurance company is somebody sitting behind a desk making 15, 20 bucks an hour answering a phone with zero medical, knowledge or experience. And it's like, you're going to supersede my doctor. You're going to supersede my physician.
By the way, do you know what those people are given as tools? A giant binder this big. Nice. It's a giant binder. And all you need to do is go to the tabs for denial. And the binder is based on how to deny because that's the money making, right? That's the business. The business is how not to lose a ton of money because the business is giving out money, right? Insurance is bringing in some money and putting out a lot. And they're just trying to bring in more money and not put out as much. And so those people are given these massive binders that tell you how all the different ways that you can deny a claim. If I remember correctly, what was the documentary done by Michael Moore called
Supersize Me?
Sicko. No, Michael Moore. I think it was called Sicko. And they talked to people who worked in those roles. I think it's Sicko. Somebody tell me if Sicko is the right one with Michael. Now, Michael Moore is very, very left wing, so he will only give you one side of this story, but he interviewed a lot of these people who did that job. And they talked about the binders that they were given and how to find the denials and that was their job. Find the denials, find a way to deny. Let's see. Incentivized to deny. I think in the interviews it is, yeah. So Jen Nee says I'm correct. I think there were incentives that the people who were interviewed talked about and it is called Sicko. Someone else. I lost the speaker. But yeah, it's Sicko by Michael Moore. I think it came out about 10, 15 years ago. And it has these interviews with these insurance employees who got the binders and were incentivized to deny.
Oh, I'll share this with you real quick. So my daughter was born at 29 weeks in 3 days. And the 3 days is important for a moment. We did 43 days in the NICU. And when we got out, our pediatrician was phenomenal pediatrician. He was the chief resident at Vanderbilt when he was in school, incredibly intelligent. Well, because she was born so early, she didn't get that the immune system push in that 8-9 month that most babies do. And so, the argument is like, well, germs are okay for kids. It helps them grow their immune system. For my kid, it would kill them. And so she ended up getting, well, before I get to that, the doctors, we were getting into RSV season. So we took COVID, all that stuff incredibly serious. Like we were just reclusive, like nobody saw us. And our doctor was like, the way that she reacts to things, you really need to get the Synagis shot, which is, I forget, it was a series of, I think, 6. And my wife's in here, which I think she is, she might correct me if I'm wrong on any of this. But it was like $1,000. You had to get all the shots or whatever the case was. And had she been 29 weeks, she would have been approved. But because she was 29 plus 3, They wouldn't. So after
3 days
multiple
knocked you
appeals,
out.
huh?
3 days knocked you out.
3 days knocked out, but our doctor didn't appear. 1,500 per shot. That's my wife right there. 1,500 per shot.
Hi, Olivia.
Um, and and ultimately, our doctor did a peer to peer. Finally, got it approved. Our daughter did get RSV, even with Synagis, was still hospitalized on oxygen. And
Got RSV and she's this big.
yeah, she was Alyssa. How much did she weigh at that point in time? Do you remember? When she was born, she was 3 pounds 2 ounces. She dropped down to 2 pounds 10 ounces at her smallest.
Unbelievable. She's okay now?
No, she's perfect. She's 5. You would never know.
Wow.
She gets a little bit of recurrent pneumonia, but that's apparently not uncommon for
You went
preemies.
through this bullshit, you know? You went through it.
Yeah, but and just so you know, so my wife's an antepartum. We had Aetna at the time, and that's why I kind of, you know, am happy with our experience with them. But every time, and I'm very grateful for the neonatologist. But every time, okay, she got RSV in February 20th. She was born July 5th, so she was 8 months old. There you go. How small was she like in size? Do you remember her weight, Alyssa? At that point, she was still little at 8 months. Um, our bills totaled over $1 million every time the neonatologist walked by, and it was twice a day, it was $10,000. And then the fun part about that was that our hospital was in network, but the neonatologists were out of network. So it's like, we don't have a choice.
You don't have a choice. Yeah.
So
People don't take the choices even if they have them because it's not safe. And, you don't know what you're getting. Like if you're told, oh, just go to an out-of-network doctor. But meanwhile, your entire case has been with someone who you trust and who you know is really good at their job. You don't want to give up the safety of that,
my wife said she was 12, 14 pounds, maybe even smaller. She had to double check. So she was little.
12, 14
pounds when she had RSV.
Oh my God. That's
Yeah.
like a pound and a half.
Yeah.
Oh,
She was so small. Yeah. We brought her home. She was like right at 4.5, 5 pounds when we brought her home.
I'm telling Anna, Anna, if you're on, I'm emailing you something
I can tell her too.
to post. Okay, I'm emailing her that little graphic of the claim denial rates. Again, I don't want to mess with the phone too much because your information, Justin, is on the phone, and to get it from email into you, I'll have to stop down. So I'm emailing Anna because there were some people asking, can you please post, Justin, can you please post the insurance denial rates?
Okay. What do you want her to do with it?
Send it to you.
Okay.
Yeah. So if Anna's on, I'm not sure if Anna's if she can hear, but
I'll type it. I'll send her a message too.
yeah, I just emailed her the graphic of the denial rates, and however she wants to get it to you. And I'm not sure if you want to put it in here or just post it on your.
I can post it. I can probably put it on Insta or something. I can put it behind me, but then she just said, "Okay, she's on it. Your assistant is good."
Yeah, she said, "Do you want to know what?
What?
Not only is she amazing as an assistant, she also took the pedicab route yesterday and filmed it and found the investigators getting the bag." And
Wow.
this is Anna DiGregorio. I actually said her name on the air last night. Not only did she do the pedicab route and film going into Central Park and finding the investigators getting the backpack as they were finding it, she also got the video of this killer riding up to the corner of Central Park. And nobody had seen this video. Nobody had seen him ride into Central Park yet.
Yeah.
He got the video of him riding up 6th Avenue, stopping at the stoplight, waiting patiently, and then crossing busy 59th right into the Central Park and then riding his way into Central Park. She got that video too yesterday. She's a very, very busy girl. Anna is amazing, Nurse Lady says. Yes, she is. Amazing. Oh, and there's Jessica Cosmetic and Sabrina on my staff. They just weighed in with happy faces. Yeah. Hi, guys. I'm so glad you're watching. By the way, I have the most unbelievable staff. Not only are they so good at doing true crime, producing and presenting and production and sleuthing. We had a Secret Santa Zoom the other day. And most people, if they had a staff event, they'd be like, ugh, whatever. This was an hour and a half of us exchanging gifts on the Zoom, opening them up, reading the poems, trying to guess each other. Everybody was so good at this. They were sending out clues in the 3 weeks leading up to it, but clues that you couldn't identify. Like we all live in different states and different cities and everything.
Yeah,
You can't just mail them, or it had to be really, really cleverly done, and everyone was amazing. And like, not one person wanted to get off the Zoom after an hour and a half holiday party,
that's awesome.
And then when I
That's a
say
huge testament. Well,
we
I'm just going to say,
good group, we just
well, I'm just going to tell you in front of all the people, if the TikTok ban goes through in a few weeks, I will be looking for a job. So
hey, you got to come work with me.
I would absolutely come work with you. I don't want to go back to medical sales.
You do?
I don't want to.
You don't. I was going to say what? There's a lot of money in medical sales, though, Justin.
I made great money, and I mean it was fun, but I don't want to travel I don't want to travel like that anymore.
Yeah,
Where I was gone 5 nights a week.
I hear you. Being on the road stinks, especially in Afghanistan. Hey, question for you. If the TikTok ban goes through, don't you think it's just going to be very temporary?
I do. I'll tell you without me getting political on this at all. I'm going to tell you what I think is going to happen. Okay. Because originally in Trump's first term, he said that he fully supported a TikTok ban. But if you dig a little deeper and during this election, he said that he no longer supported it. But if you dig a little bit more, there's a gentleman by the name of Jeff Yass, who's like Susquehanna Trading Group, or I think is what the company's called, billionaire. The trading group has a 15% stake in ByteDance. Jeff has a 7% stake. That 7% stake alone is worth $21 billion. And he's a Republican mega donor, Trump mega donor.
Not going to happen.
And you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen.
I don't think it is either.
And I also think that I believe, just because I've been in this rodeo for a while, I believe that you're going to see a lot more separation of wealth right now. A lot of people have been complaining about super, super rich and the super, super poor. That's what happens. That's how you become a second and third world, developing nation, or at least, there's a big separation of wealth. You got ultra, ultra rich and no middle class. And we're seeing the squeezing middle class, right? Didn't you just say
that's why people don't, and going back to what we were talking about earlier, again, without condoning it, that's why I believe people are not upset about Brian Thompson's death.
No, it's totally why. I just don't see that this is going to get better. I don't see Trump's policies limiting the super rich. They're usually the biggest donors. They're really good friends. They're all down members of Mar-a-Lago. I'm not so sure that people are going to get what they may get the social justice change they're hoping for in Trump, but I'm just not so sure you're going to get the economic disparity, close the gap. I don't think that's going to happen. Like I said, I just think things like TikTok, nope, those are big businesses where Republican donors and Trump friends and business associates will probably have influence.
Well, the thing is, so like I make money off the videos and stuff, but the videos themselves are not enough to really, you don't make enough on videos to survive, right? You make enough to make okay. But I've written 3 children's books as well, and I sell those on here, and they do well. Yeah, one's called Boundaries, the other's called Surprises Are Okay, Secrets Are Not, which was written because of some of the cases we covered. And basically, I wrote Surprises, and I tell people this, so I don't have to do a story on your child. And that's why. And then the other one that just came out is called The Lost Balloon, a book about sharing, but it's actually a little bit more than that. It also has, I would say undertones, but it's really overtones of learning about, accepting different cultures, making friends with people who are different than who you are, and, making friends through sharing and things like that. So
that's so awesome. You're so talented.
Thank you. And Nikki Schmidt and I are collaborating on one, a children's book, and I think we've talked about it on live. Where Gabby would be the main character.
By the way, there are a lot of people commenting that they want us to talk about Karen Reed, but we're already an hour and a half in. I'm not sure that we have time to go into another topic.
It's up to you. And we can always, if it's something that you enjoy doing, we can always schedule and do another one of these if you like it. I think that's up to you. Karen Reed's I don't know, what can you say on that? I mean, because I know you're only limited on what you can say opinion wise.
Yeah, well, I think that I have to go back into all the arcane aspects of the case and why there was a hung jury. And I think that there is some pretty smart litigation in terms of the way she's appealing the decision of the prosecutors to retry. And I'm seeing this, by the way, I'm seeing the same kind of thing. I got to reread it because I'm sort of forgetting. But I'm seeing the same kind of thing in the Daniel Penny case in New York, where there's a jury form, right? So I'm going to get a little technical, but it's the devil's in the details. There's a jury form in Daniel Penny's case that has manslaughter, and then the next one, I think, is criminally negligent homicide. I might be mistaken, but it's a lower charge. It's a lesser included. And the instructions that were given to Daniel Penny's jury was come to a resolution on charge 1 before you go to charge 2. You may not go to charge 2 unless you resolve charge 1, right? That's my language, not the judge's. And they couldn't resolve the first charge, the highest charge. They said we're deadlocked. So they came back in, and the judge was sort of like, I don't know what to do about this. Well, I'll just dismiss it, and you go ahead to charge 2. Okay, if they come back with guilty on charge 2, I think his lawyers may have a very good appeal, and that is that the law said, and the instruction said, if you can't resolve charge 1, you may not go to charge 2, and then he just changed his mind mid-deliberation. So something like that, I think, if I remember correctly, happened in Karen Reed. There was some kind of disagreement.
Yeah, I don't remember. I was following it, but not. It's been a minute.
I think they on certain, and maybe the commenters can help. I think that in some of the jury forum, the jurors acquitted and then hung, and what Karen's lawyer, who's very, very good, wants to do is say, well, that's double jeopardy. If you acquit, it was a split.
Yeah.
Verdict. If you acquitted on those, you can't go after them again. Much like the football player Aaron Hernandez. I think there's some. Yeah, not guilty on the first they left not guilty as an option. Yeah. So anyway, I think that there's some good litigation about the litigation, if that makes sense. Those are my thoughts on Karen Reed. I also just personally, just with what I've seen, and I have to preface it by saying I was not in this courtroom. I've only been a media headline person on it, which is a very, very different thing than sitting in Casey Anthony's courtroom, which is what I did. It just doesn't look like this is a guilty verdict for her.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And real quick, so because I didn't realize it had been an hour and a half. So no, I just been just good. So I want to be cognizant of your time and everybody else's. So let's do about 3 minutes. That'll get us to 2:40 my time or 3:40 your time. Do you want to give everybody? I could do it, or you can. Where to find you, where to watch you, where to follow, all that kind of stuff. Promote the show.
I want to hit something. So I'm on News Nation, which if you haven't heard of News Nation, we launched to be right in the middle of all the news networks because everyone's in silos and it's nauseating. So if you want to hear both sides of every story, you come to News Nation. I'm on at 10 o'clock at night. I do true crime. Everybody else, Cuomo and Dan Abrams and Elizabeth Vargas and Connell McShane and everybody, they all do the news of the day. I'm the only outlier with just true crime at 10 o'clock at night. But we are what we say news for all Americans, meaning whether you're left or right, you're going to get the full story. And please, as good citizens, you should know. If you disagree with something, you should know why. And that's my pitch for News Nation at 10 p.m. Eastern. But then I also have a podcast coming out.
That's exciting.
I'm about to launch a podcast called Drop Dead Serious. And I'm launching it with a 6-part series on a guy named Peter Nygard. Do a quick Google because this guy.
You said you want to bring that up, yeah. So.
This guy is worse than if you were to take Epstein, Weinstein, and allegations against Diddy and allegations against Bill Cosby and put them all together. He's worse than them all combined. He is a billionaire who had his way, raping his way through myriad women, upwards of maybe thousands, and has just been taken down in Canada. And it's not over yet because there's 3 more fronts he has to face, including Southern District of New York, and a massive civil case with over 135 people, including his own kids, who sued him for sexual abuse. The tyrant aspect of this billionaire and what he did to so many of these people that he raped, assaulted, verbally, physically, everything is jaw-dropping. And the reason I'm doing it is because, to me, he was not Peter Nygard, he was Uncle Peter.
Oh, wow.
So the weird thing is that his my best friend is his niece, and so I grew up with him. I grew up, hey, Uncle Peter's here, and he was very affable, and he used to spread his wealth and be very generous, and I think that was his MO, was that he was doing a lot of this stuff, and in the meantime, raping his way through the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, and then he was caught, and he was arrested 4 years ago next week, and he's still fighting all these fronts, but he's been convicted in Toronto. He has to be tried in Montreal, Winnipeg, and New York, and then all the civil cases. So I've got a 6-part series with all the inside stuff, including letters.
I can't wait for this.
Letters between him and Hugh Hefner, like really crazy. And all the video. I got a YouTube component to this as well. all the video of these naked parties in his Bahamas lair. He had a $50 million Bahamas home out on Lyford Keys Point. And it used to be just like twisted sex parties nonstop.
When is this dropping?
January.
Okay, that's exciting. Yeah, and if your people let me know, I'll make sure to promote it out too. I'm happy to do that.
Do something the week that it's going to drop, but it's a 6-part. And then after the 6-part series has dropped, I'm going to do an always on every week with cases like we're talking about right now. And I have to have you on as my guest.
I would love to go on, and I can't say too much right now about this, but I will text you and let you know. I don't know if you know. I know he knows some of your people. Dan Catullo, he's a Hollywood director, writer, producer, does primarily rockumentaries. He and I have been working together a lot. I met him through the Riley Strain case. And long and short of the story, I'm not going to give too much information other than we flew out to Las Vegas and recorded a very professional podcast. We have the same agent, Dan and I, through Bookwald. And we're trying to get it. I'll have to tell you, it's a very interesting concept for a podcast. But I'll have to tell you about it. Maybe we can do the same thing.
Cool. Oh, I also wanted to let your folks know that I've got the trailer up now, Drop Dead Serious. Just go dropdeadserious.com. And I've got the trailer for Peter Nygard for that. This series is called Uncle Peter, aptly. This one's called Uncle Peter. And I have another one in the works as well that's called Oh My Godmother. Because my godmother was murdered, and the guy who was caught was my dad's best man. It was his wife.
These are insane.
And I don't think he did it. And I'm not saying that because they're family, but like seriously, the investigations that have been done is like I think they got the wrong guy. I think they actually did get the wrong guy.
Well, that's a good note that's a good one to leave it on, and hopefully, again, I appreciate you coming on and spending so much time and answering these questions for everyone.
Well, I told you I adore you. It's why we keep calling you and asking you to come on.
I keep wanting to be on, and sometimes and Courtney doesn't even live that far from me. And yeah, Courtney lives like
our chief booker, and she's the most amazing producer ever.
Yeah, she's wonderful, and she lives I'm not gonna like dime out where she's at, but she's right across the lake from me, basically. And so she's very close. But no, I love coming on your show. It's fun. Anytime that they call me, you want to come on? I'm like, yes. Just tell me when. So.
Okay, well, come on this week.
I will. I'm around this week.
Yay! Perfect. All right, I'm going to call. Courtney's on right now. I'm sure she is. Let's book.
Yeah, she's been texting me too.
Okay, good. Well, let's plan something for this week.
All right, sounds good. Hopefully, we'll have you back on again. And if you don't follow Ashleigh already on here, do so. Maybe she'll post more. Maybe she won't. But just in case she does, follow. I
will. I'll start posting more. I got to get my act together. In fact, I plan to up my TikTok game pretty soon.
Well, I love to help with that kind of stuff. Seriously. So if you do have any questions, ask. I've Joe, Nikki, and Jim, and even a little bit of Tara. I've helped all of them up their socials, and they've been doing a great job with it. So I love doing it. It's just fun to do that and help others kind of get it growing. So if you need help, just let me know.
I do. I need all the help I can get. I focus everything into TV production and making good stories that come alive with video and production, and I don't think of anything else.
No, I get that though. You have a lot going on. So, well, awesome. Well, I will text you some of the other stuff, and I appreciate it. Everyone. Have a great day. Make sure to follow, and we'll do this again soon.
Thank you, sweetie. It's great to talk to you, and thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed this. And P.S., you have really smart people in your comments. The stuff that I'm just watching, holy cow, they know their stuff. Plus,
I have the best followers. No, I have the best followers on this app, especially in the true crime current event space.
And so nice. I love that they're challenging and they're asking probing questions, but nobody's a dick.
When they immediately get muted. We don't tolerate that. We want everybody to feel comfortable here.
Well, I'm liking all of you guys. Thank you so much for being so nice, and thanks for tuning in, everybody. I'm glad to meet you if it's for the first time, and hopefully we can do more stuff together. Thanks, Dustin. I really appreciate it.
Well, you have a great rest of the week, and talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks. No, it's going to take me forever to find out how to actually close it out because I'm not.
Well, I can do it for both of us. I got you. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye, sweetie.